Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Divorce-a-Palooza. So, when you think of the advice you get from a divorce attorney, they're wonderful at giving legal advice, and their job is to get you through the legal process with hopefully the best outcome possible. And I think that my guest, who's a divorce attorney, is a wonderful divorce attorney. But we decided to use this episode to offer you words of encouragement because I think that a lot of times you don't expect that from your divorce attorney because you and your divorce attorney's relationship is all about getting divorced and it's all business. My guest is Catherine Becker Good, and Catherine is a divorce attorney and the founder of the law office of Catherine Becker Good. She's been an attorney for over 30 years in Massachusetts. So, hi, Catherine.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for being on Divorceapalooza.
Of course.
And being in practice for 30 years, I'm sure that you have had gotten to know your clients really well, and you do offer them words of encouragement, right?
Yes. In fact, I almost think part of my job description includes it's almost there's a counseling element to it, aside from the legal advice piece.
So if you're someone listening and you feel like you really need somebody who's going to get more emotionally involved,
Mhm.
you strike me, Catherine, in the 2 years I've known you as being somebody who is easy to talk to, doesn't keep it business every single second. Well,
Mhm.
obviously, if you're in a courtroom or in mediation, it's gonna
Right.
be business, but between you and your client, because it's hard and it does get emotional.
Mhm. It
And
does.
anyone who says, "Remember, it's a business decision, it's a business transaction," that's much easier said than done.
Right. And especially where you have children involved, it's not a bit, and I hear that a lot. There's one judge locally who likes to say that you're business partners and you need to treat this as a business, but really when it comes to children, it's hard to act as just business partners. And then there's the whole emotional piece of your marriage is ending. So it's the death of a marriage, which is very emotional. Oftentimes people don't know what their future holds. And so on top of the emotion, they're also very anxious and concerned, and or maybe they're frightened because they had no idea what their financial situation was while they were married, and all of a sudden they have to start dealing with finances. So there are a number of levels of sort of anxious that can cause anxiety, throughout the process.
I was there, I
Yeah,
experienced it.
yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna offer a few tips, words of encouragement for somebody going through a divorce, and I wanna tell everyone watching that Catherine wrote this as an article on Divorced Girl Smiling. You can find it at divorcedgirlsmiling.com. And so I'm gonna run through a few of these
Mm.
pieces of advice, words of encouragement. The first one is remember that as scared as you are, your ex is scared too, and don't assume everything is great with him. That's a good one.
Mhm. Go ahead,
I was
sorry.
just gonna say, because people feel like I remember when I was going through a divorce, my ex had a girlfriend pretty early on. Every time I would see him, I would just assume that he was really happy and
Mm,
everything was great with him, and he was so glad to be rid of me. And
right.
I think that's something that people just build up in their minds, and it's not true.
Mhm. No, I think divorce is, whether you are, looking to end the marriage or not, I think just the whole divorce process, is tough on both sides. It's not just a one-sided thing.
And also for people who are watching this and your ex is being really mean to you, I remember my dad used to tell me it's because he's scared. He's being mean to you because he's scared. And I'd be like, really? And you know what? Looking back, he was right.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm. Okay, next piece of advice is you are so much stronger than you think, and that it is in challenging times that people start to shine.
Yes.
And I love how you said, "I can't count the number of women who have sat in their office." Tell me about the initial consultation and then at the end of the divorce.
Yes. So oftentimes initially, and it tends to be more women than men, but women will come in and for lack of a better word, they're just a mess. Emotionally, they just don't know what's going on. Sometimes the divorce was a surprise, but as I mentioned earlier, sometimes it's just they've never had to sort of rely upon themselves. They've always had someone else to help them either or take care of them, either one, or just, be there to help them with different issues such as finances or helping with the kids or deciding where to live or paying the bills or whatever it might be. And all of a sudden, um, these women are faced with going alone and facing their future alone. And sometimes they don't know where they're going to move to, how they're going to be able to do it on their own, what are their finances going to look like, what can they afford. And so it's just a very anxiety sort of ridden meeting usually. And so I usually just talk to women and just say, you're stronger than you think. You need to start taking this just one sort of piece at a time and try to project and imagine where you see yourself down the road. Where would you like to live? Do you think you'd like to live in the same town, or maybe it's another town, or just try to envision different scenarios. And over time, people become a little more comfortable with different things that they've envisioned, or they've been able to eliminate certain options. And what I've seen is it's just amazing within, I'd say, a year. And I always say to people, give yourself a year, because a year is a long period of time. And really, I have just seen women go from being just an absolute mess to being strong and independent and having a purpose and having a plan and just doing it on their own. And the transformation is just amazing, you
Okay,
know.
now if someone says like, "Catherine, how do you get from point A to point B?" What is in that year that is happening to cause this transformation?
I think part of it is the planning, part of it is the envisioning, and just, and hopefully I help a little bit along the way as well. I can sort of guide them and give them options and help them to feel a little more financially secure, and that maybe you've gone in on a motion for child support, or they're selling a house and they now know how much money is coming to them, or whatever. It's just during sort of as you go along, I think they just become more comfortable also being on their own, whereas they weren't before, and all of a sudden they learn to do things that they didn't do before. Maybe they're paying their credit cards or whatever it is that weren't really responsible for, and now they're doing it, and taking on that responsibility, it usually breeds confidence, and just over time it just multiplies.
Yes, I think you just hit it. You need time. You have to be patient and give it time. And with time, if you start having meetings with a financial advisor, a divorce coach, mortgage lender, of course, your divorce attorney, you start to become empowered. And
Hmm.
then you start to do things. And like Catherine said, like maybe you had never paid bills. Now you're paying bills. And you're like, well, if I can do this, now I can do something else. And so it's like
Right.
baby steps. And then you really learn this self sufficiency
Hmm.
and independence. People are so afraid of being alone, and then
Right.
after a year, they're like, "I love staying home by
I know.
myself and watching a movie." And you
Exactly.
really and that feels empowering, like, "Wow,
Right.
I can do this, and I'm not, like, so desperate to be with someone." And
And
so
there's also a freedom too, because you can do what you want, right? You can, to a certain extent. I mean, sometimes if you have children, you might be limited in where you can move. But in theory, let's say you're going through a divorce, all of a sudden you think, maybe I'll try London. Why not, right? I don't have to, get anyone's permission. I can just do whatever I want. And so I think with that freedom too also comes some just confidence and independence. And I think it all just,
I
yeah.
love that, and I have
Mhm.
seen countless women go from point A to point B, like you have said, and I'm sure in your 30 years of practicing, you have too, which is your next piece of encouragement.
Mhm.
So many past clients of mine have been in your situation and they've all made it through the process, and so many are thriving.
Mhm.
So people who are watching this might be thinking, well, how does she know they're all thriving? I mean, have you ever heard of anybody doing really, really awful? Probably not. Some
No.
do better than others. What's
Mhm.
what's the difference between somebody who's thriving really, really well and someone who's like just doing okay?
I think, and this really is, just my personal opinion, but there's some people who are able to get past the divorce or work through the divorce and get past the divorce, and other people who just it defines them or they become obsessed with it or it just they let it sort of take over much of their life. And so it's those people that are really handicapped a little bit because they can't get beyond the divorce, whether it's the bitterness or whatever it is, versus the people who just look at this as a process to go through, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and they work their way through. They tend to just do, much better, and they're much happier, and their children are happier, and it's just a better approach, I find. The ones who can't let the divorce go, it follows them, it affects them physically, it affects them mentally, and it just, and socially, it just sort of takes over their life. Yeah.
And what if someone would say to you like, "I can't let it go. I really want to, but I just can't." What do you say? Is there anything we can suggest?
I would just refer them to I always therapy, I think, is a wonderful thing. Just having someone to talk to, particularly someone who has experience in dealing with people going through divorce. I think that's a great resource.
And
And I
I think
also I also recommend your website because I think it's a great source of support. And not only do you have people going through similar experiences, and you also have these resources available, but there's some humor in it as well. And I think that's just a great resource for people.
thank you so much for saying
Mhm.
that. And I was also going to say, I believe in divorce coaching for that as well, because I know that all of my divorce coaches on Divorce Girl Smiling, they're all divorced. I mean,
Mhm.
they've been through it. And so they will give you like practical things you can do to let go of the anger. Like there's actually homework they will give you to help you let go. And
Mm.
really I more and more the more stories I hear, I am really a fan of divorce coaching. I wish they would have had it when I was going through a divorce. Okay, I'm deciding if we have time for one more. I think we should because we're on a
Okay.
roll. I would say the last piece of advice that you gave is you have so much life ahead of you. Even if you're 50 or 60, you can reinvent yourself and find a good, happy, healthy life. And I've seen so many people do it. What a
Mhm.
wonderful way to end this recording.
Mhm. And like I was mentioning earlier, I mean, really, the possibilities are limitless to a certain extent. A little easier if you have adult children or you're not dealing with young children, but the sky's the limit. You can do what you want, you can try different things. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, great. And I think people, maybe somebody decides they want to take a dance class and try ballet for the first time in their life. And maybe they're not a particularly good dancer, but it's something that they've tried and they've expanded their personal,
They're opening their mind to new things,
yes.
and
Yeah.
so Catherine, tell me you haven't heard this because I bet you have.
Mm.
Okay, how about when people say to you like, "I'm 50. My life,
Yeah.
who's ever gonna want me? What am I supposed to do now?" I would give anything to be 50
I
again.
know.
I mean, you
I
have
know.
so much life ahead of you. I go
Mhm.
down to Florida in the winter and see countless 80-year-olds well into their 80s living their best life. That means that
Mhm.
you have 30 to 40 more years.
That's right.
So, I mean,
Right.
think of it that way.
Mhm. And all of that, I've come across a lot of different, women. I know some are affiliated with Divorce Girls Smiling, where they have these groups or retreats that they travel the world, and they're seeing new places, and they're meeting other women, and they're trying new experiences, and it's all wonderful. So there's a lot out there for them to just, to look for and enjoy.
Well, I went on one of those retreats. And, speaking when you said, "Oh, maybe I'll try London." Well, I tried Greece and I hadn't been out of the country in 30 some years, and it was the best, and I was
Really? Yeah.
really scared. I was crying in the airport before I left. I didn't know if I could do it, and
Really?
what I was
Yeah.
afraid of. It was like the best experience for me, and I
Yeah.
really believe that people, when they get divorced, are so hopeless and thinking their best life is over, and I
Mhm.
honestly feel like most people say, "I'm so much happier now, and
Mhm.
life is so good."
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Agreed.
Catherine, thank you so much for being on Divorceapalooza. I really, really
Welcome.
appreciate your time. I want to tell people watching, if you want to have a consult with Catherine and you live in Massachusetts, she can be found at cbgoodlaw.com. You can also find her in the trusted professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling at divorcedgirlsmiling.com. Thanks again, Catherine.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for watching.